Okay. So hello everyone. People are still joining, but we will start. So this is the third open lecture online from altogether 6 provided by Data for Ukraine project. So I'm thankful to our Lviv colleagues who are hosting this whole lecture series in general. So it's kind of also honor for us to be part of it, because I need to warn in advance that me and Elīna, we don't work as professors or teachers on daily basis. So this is not our daily thing to do. However, today we will have a lecture which is called like the following. You can see. So cultural heritage at risk of conflict and war, human rights and democracy perspectives. We both are researchers at the Institute of Literature, Folklore and Art, University of Latvia. So we are here in Riga right now on a little rainy day. And we both are colleagues, me, Rita Grinvalde, and Elīna Gайлīte, also at the same department of Institute, and this department is Archives of Latvian Folklore. So basically our daily work is connected with intangible cultural heritage, and we do work with different perspectives of it. So here is also the title in Ukrainian, and I also would love to thank Paulina for checking the translations of Ukrainian language for this presentation. So basically those who prefer Ukrainian language, we can read the presentation text and get something from that. All right, let us move on. So, why such topic of a lecture? Within the Data for Ukraine project, there was the motivation given, and I believe that was also the reason why it got funded and supported by European Commission Erasmus Plus program. And one of the points was democracy and inclusive democratic participation. In the quote, you can see literary text from project description, how it is put in the project ethos. And me and my colleague Elīna, we were thinking that it would be great to give floor to this human rights and democracy topic within these lectures. We know that lectures all together, they form a very nice set of information and perspectives, and let's hope this isn't too theoretical, although the primary sources which I've used are public legal documents, but we will have also a look at the research we've done online together with colleagues at inventories. And of course, there has been a lot of literature studies too recently regarding the topic, and perhaps I will show you some of the books which I have right here on the table. All right, let's move on. So about the human rights, we use this term almost every day, and of course in the context of Russia's war in Ukraine, very much so too. But just to remind that the core document is this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It is a milestone document in the history of human rights, but of course history goes very much back to Hammurabi law, to Greek law and Bible and so on. Drafted, it was right after World War II, so keep in mind the context was war, and with different legal backgrounds from all regions of the world. And the declaration was proclaimed by United Nations General Assembly in Paris on December 10, 1948. respect. And this is a common standard of achievements for all peoples and all nations. So it sets out the first fundamental rights to be universally protected. So not only for the national countries, but for globally acknowledged. So this core document says that all people have the inherent right to human rights, regardless of their race, color, language, religion, gender, or any other characteristic. The freedom from slavery and torture, the right to life and liberty, the freedom of speech and thought, the right to employment and education, and many more rights are given as examples in Human Rights Declaration. And without exception, everyone is entitled to these rights. This was just a short reminder. So this is also summing up the key values that human rights have, what they define. And two of the key values at the core of the idea of human rights are human dignity and equality. And the rest of the bullet points here or values are the following. So freedom, and so the freedom, since it is a vital component of our dignity, and being made to perform something against our will is a disdain to humanity. Respect for others, I think we hear this very much. So we have to appreciate each individuality and essential dignity. Non-discrimination, that is kind of clear, but this is equality in human dignity, which means we should not decide on people's rights and opportunities on the basis of their origin or characteristics. So also tolerance. The opposite of tolerance is lack of respect of differences. Justice, because people, according to human rights understanding, are equal in their humanity and deserve fair treatment. And last but not least, responsibility, which means respecting the rights of others as well as responsibility for one's action for realization of the rights of one and all. Human rights, of course, is also a big area of research in legal studies. And it is very much instrumentalized and also institutionalized, and United Nations, of course, being the umbrella organization, but in every democratic country there are subsidiary bodies or national institutions who care about human rights. Okay. Now we move a little bit on. There are two articles of more recent origin in a Human Rights Declaration. And these two articles are 22 and 27. And I have highlighted that we can start seeing cultural aspects in Human Rights Declaration. So basically it says that cultural rights are also important part of its human rights, and people have right to cultural life. So I'll move on. And this lets us move to the next, which is cultural rights. So access, now in the international legislation, cultural heritage is seen as an object to cultural rights. Since the creation of the mandate and in 2009, the United Nations Special Rapporteur in the field of cultural rights has focused on a variety of issues relating to cultural heritage. And this is called the cultural rights approach to heritage. And it determines, and the quote is here, that it is the right of access to and enjoyment of cultural heritage is based on various human rights norms. It includes the right of individuals and communities to inter alia, know, understand, enter, visit, make use of, maintain, and exchange cultural heritage, as well as to benefit from the cultural heritage, and so on. And so it's a long paragraph. However, in 2016, the United Nations declared intentional destruction of cultural heritage in conflict and non-conflict situations as a violation to human rights. In recent years, the links between human rights and cultural heritage has attracted a lot of academic attention. So we move on. On access to cultural rights, access to cultural heritage as human rights. Here we can see, this is also the United Nations sub-organization who is responsible about it, but these are the two core documents or reports: the right to access and enjoy cultural heritage, and another intentional destruction of cultural heritage, a violation of human rights. So since these years, so let's say for around 12 and more years, cultural heritage has been a crucial part of this whole understanding of human rights. And also in the forthcoming documents, as we see, it has always had its own part. To sum this slide up, I just want to say that these two reports have shaped very much the understanding of public thought also, even if people don't refer to the documents in daily life. So the path to the current global responsibility has been paved by several high relevance international agreements and documents on heritage protection since the end of Second World War. So the first is from 1954, the so-called Hague Convention, and its longer title. And then next, some more in this list. I want to comment a little bit only about the first and the last, because basically every of these documents could be a lecture itself. So I want to draw your attention that the first, this Hague Convention, the context, as most of the things which we are talking here today was again the war. And in the preambles of this document, of this convention, it starts with legal sentences like this: recognizing that cultural property has suffered grave damage during recent armed conflicts, they mean Second World War. They say also, being convinced that damage to cultural property belonging to any people whatsoever means damage to cultural heritage of all mankind. So this global approach. And also considering that the preservation of the cultural heritage is of great importance for all peoples. Again, a universal attitude to the problem. The last in this list here is a UNESCO Convention for Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage. Since me and Elīna, we represent this intangible cultural heritage. This is kind of our daily document, almost, so to say. But I want to draw your attention. When we speak of war and war damage, it's pretty typical that we imagine houses destroyed, of course, human lives, but when we think about heritage houses, sites, and something we can touch and see with our eyes, but also intangible cultural heritage, which is practices and traditions, is very much affected by the war. And also this war in Ukraine, we see, just as a little example, as the war spread, also many countries around Ukraine in Europe faced refugees, and they come with their heritage. And as we know, Ukrainians are very proud people, and they love to present. And basically, this war migration brought also intangible cultural heritage with them. That's just one little example. Another one, I really like it. No, if you can say like in this context, but anyways, since 2022 in Riga, I think we have become also very familiar with cuisine of Ukraine. Before that, I think we had blurry idea about borscht and sirnik and so on. But since we do have also thanks to refugees, they have made canteens and open, I don't know, kitchen master classes, many things. We get to know it more and better. So these intangible things like skills, they travel during the war. And of course, in the most severe occasions when human identity is denied, let's say, due to war, that also means a big suppression of your heritage and skills and traditions you inherit. Okay, let's move on. Yeah. Here I wanted still along with those two, I wanted to add also a very important document, Nicosia Convention. This particular slide is just introduction to the conference which we held last year in our workplace, the National Library of Latvia. And it was when Latvia took over presidency of European Council last year. There was this big conference dedicated exactly to Nicosia Convention. What is this Nicosia Convention? It is a criminal justice response to offenses related to cultural property. And it's open to sign to any country in the world. And the Convention of Offenses relating to cultural property aims to prevent and combat the illicit trafficking and destruction of cultural property. By the way, in museum studies, it raised big topic of this repatriation of material values from stolen during, I don't know, colonial context or whatever. We can imagine British Museum, for instance, full of Egyptian art or Greek art and so on. It also calls to criminalization of all kind of trafficking of cultural property, establishes a number of criminal offenses, including theft, unlawful excavation, importation and exportation, and illegal acquisition and placing on the market. It also criminalizes the falsification of documents and the destruction of damage of cultural property. So this Nicosia Convention, of course, is very much topical during the war in Ukraine, as you can also see in the second paragraph, the opening of the conference. This was the context, and sorry to say that really the war is the context when these bad things can happen. All right, we move on. So the question is about cultural heritage and security. In the introduction chapter, Cultural Heritage and Armed Conflict, Preserving Art While Protecting Life, from this book, and I really like this book. You can see the title on the slide. Frederick Rosen writes that his team research followed the current global trend in which belligerents destroy and misappropriate cultural heritage, including places of worship, to stir up rage and antagonisms, as seen most recently in conflicts in, among other places, Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Mali, Yemen, and Ukraine. Actually, the book came out in 2022, and just they added in the introduction and other parts the Ukrainian aspect, because this was a very big study for many years, but they saw the same things that happened in Syria, they happen in Ukraine. So I really recommend this book for those who are interested. States and international organizations have strengthened existing political and legal processes, as well as developed new ones in response to the growing significance of cultural heritage as a security concern. These mechanisms are intended to preserve, safeguard, and manage cultural heritage-related issues in relation to conflicts. And now I quote, "At the core of the responses stands the recognition that cultural heritage matters increasingly to international security. Sometimes cultural heritage embodies a value for society so strong that its destruction may participate destabilization and eruption of violence or even fatal erosion of cultures and cultural groups." And you can also see in this little quote that Rosen says, so this is not just a cultural tragedy, but this is a question of security. And in other words, so not only we as researchers of cultural heritage have interested in that, and about military studies, and Rosen is also represents field of military studies. They follow very much these securities issues. I have said also the concept of unconventional warfare. Now it's not a new term. It's in general, it means military and quasi-military operations other than conventional warfare. No, conventional is just shooting, bombing, and so on, but then there are also other military actions. And I had pleasure to discuss over quite long hours and also read Craig Ross study. He's from the field of military studies, PhD at St. Andrews in Scotland right now, PhD student. And he studies very much our region, and by our I mean the Baltics, Ukraine, all around Russia, so to say. And he has noticed that this heritage, cultural heritage, is very often used as unconventional warfare, and especially the heritage which is so-called Soviet heritage. Basically what happens, these are attacks to heritage, but he has studied more profoundly Estonian case. They have these bronze soldiers, they were removed and so on, but he also drew attention that Russia's activities has activated all the countries around. The Baltic states respond by intensifying desovietization initiatives, removing more Soviet war memorials and focusing on further erasing the remnants of Soviet influence. The same happens, of course, in Ukraine and other countries. I believe you noticed that street names have been changed rapidly in Europe, and this is unconventional warfare. Also, for example, Czech Republic, Prague, the street near Russia's embassy is called something like Ukraine's Liberty. I don't remember exactly. The same here in Riga. In 2022, they renamed the street name. Monuments are very much involved, and we in Latvia experienced really that decolonization of, I believe, last instance is going on right now. We had several still kind of cultural heritage value monuments, but they were removed. In some cases, they are moved to some safe space if it's, I don't know, good arts or something, but the biggest ones really got literally destroyed, and the landscape of Riga has changed pretty much. Needless to say, the same in Kiev and other countries, other cities in Europe. So, so this is to draw your attention that cultural heritage plays a certain role in this war, and it's not from the news which we got from military frontline, but this is different type of fight. Okay, but to balance it, I need to also say that cultural heritage can be very important in peace building. And this slide and chapter I have taken from Colin Breen's book. Yeah, and the book is called Conflicts, Cultural Heritage and Peace. And he has tried to position cultural heritage within a peace-building framework and conflict transformation, as well as understand the role of cultural heritage, what cultural heritage can play in the reconciliation process between two parties. So he has created a model, and since in the book it says no part should be reproduced, I needed to rewrite it. I couldn't just put it as a photo, but this, right now it looks like lyrics for a song, but basically it's kind of a circle, or so these all four parts are very much interconnected. And so we see that heritage and identity, all the aspects probably are here. Maybe othering isn't clear. Othering is when you don't recognize the heritage, you kind of forget it on public level, or just make it weird or unacceptable or whatever. So, but othering is an active process during the war. So heritage targeted by war, these things will be illuminated more by my colleague Elīna. And heritage in peace building, which I have highlighted, well, there is an important point that Colin Breen stresses. He says that these processes of peace building, they should never be top-down or imposed from above from some, I don't know, United Nations, whatever, some big organizations. They should come from communities and national states themselves. So it should be kind of organic process, and it will never be easy. Attacks on cultural heritage ranges very much from destructions of sites to community displacements and identity loss in many cases. I don't know if it's correct, but I remember those children who have been deported to Russia, and probably their identities have been very much shaped during this fragile age. Including, so it is imperative that we include heritage in peace-building processes later on, but it should be taken with very big care, since these things are super sensitive, and it's a question of identity, and there is a lot of ideological and symbolic value to almost every little thing that we can call cultural heritage. All right, so thank you. So my part will move now to more visual. So Elīna Gайлīte, and we will go to specific cases.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I hope you hear me. If not, then raise your hand. But yeah, so one of the main tasks at the start of our project was to find out what initiatives and projects have been and are being taken to understand what and who is supporting Ukraine and its cultural heritage. But focusing especially on higher education institutions and their staff. So the material collected was then analyzed, and the scientific paper has been written and will hopefully be published. And and now I will give you a little insight into some of the initiatives. Some of them you may already know, I think so, but hopefully you may also learn something new about those initiatives. We in our project that you already know, we organized the initiatives in two main inventories. The first one is International Higher Education Institutions' Responses to Cultural Heritage Emergency in Wartime Ukraine. And in this group are the wide range of activities that universities have done to support cultural heritage preservation. And the second group, University Actors as Agents of Change in Digital Cultural Heritage for Crisis Responsiveness. Here are initiatives by academics, researchers, and students who have been actively involved in protecting Ukraine's heritage. So we studied a total of 103 initiatives from 24 countries. From all over the world, but mostly European countries are involved. The initiatives are divided into three groups. They can be divided into three groups. Those created and implemented entirely by Ukrainian people, those involved both Ukrainian and foreign partners, and those initiatives implemented outside Ukraine, but with the aim of helping Ukraine. Although most of the initiatives are organized outside, it was clear that there is also cooperation with Ukrainian stakeholders, or Ukrainians living abroad are involved in the implementation of the project. And how did we get the data? We searched in search engines, of course, and used specific keywords in different languages to ensure overall coverage, drawing data from university representatives, official reports, and institutional websites. Of course, it was not possible to find all the initiatives, both because of language differences and because there is certainly not enough public information on some of them. But now I will introduce you to some of the initiatives, and next slide, please.
Kaut kāpēc nevirzās uz priekšu? Ko es varu darīt vēl?
Es nezinu.
Ai. Why doesn't it move all of a sudden? Okay.
Yes, thank you. So the first one, research project, digital documentation of inscriptions in the Sophia Cathedral in Kyiv. A small researchers group from the University of Gothenburg worked together with specialists from Museum Sophia Cathedral in Kyiv, and the project continues until the end of this year, so we'll see the results just at the end of this year. The walls of the cathedral holds over 7,000 inscriptions that span more than 1,000 years and reflect a variety of languages and writing systems, providing a valuable research base for analysis of language and writing, migration, trade, craft traditions, cultural exchange, and diversity in Europe. However, as much of the architectural heritage is under threat from war, it is necessary to document what is possible. The aim is to document the inscriptions using digital techniques and make the material available to both researchers and also for the public. Next slide, please. So the second initiative is research profiles of resistance and resilience, documenting looting, damage, and destruction of Ukrainian cultural heritage. And the University of Notre Dame in USA and Ukrainian Catholic University have been working together for almost 20 years. And students from Ukraine went to the US to study and work there for a semester, and also did the administrative stuff. Funding grants were also set up to develop different types of cooperation. And one of these grant recipients is this project that I'm talking about. And professors from the USA offered Ukrainian colleagues and students to work together to document what is happening through documentary storytelling, and to capture cultural heritage values on film. And this educational cooperation, which included hands-on training in Lviv and the use of advanced technological tools, underlined the shared commitment to preserving Ukraine's heritage and to strengthen the democratic and national values. Next slide, please. I think maybe this is the very famous project that I think you all have heard of. And the Saving Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Online is an international volunteer initiative to safeguard the digital cultural heritage of Ukraine. 3 people from different universities launched the initiative on 1st March 2022. Over 1,500 international volunteers work together online to digitize and protect the heritage. And this initiative has successfully archived over 5,000 websites and 50 terabytes of data from Ukrainian cultural entities, ensuring their digital presence remains accessible. And there are diverse range of sites, from national archives and local museums to virtual church tours and children's art centers. And they also coordinate the delivery of digitization equipment, arrange training for Ukrainian cultural professionals in digital preservation techniques, managed an online exhibit on Ukrainian culture, and preserved Ukrainian war memes. So the material are very different, and they not only collected various donations but also highlighted the war and the needs of Ukraine, which is also very important in this time. Next, please. Initiative, the Center to Rescue Cultural Heritage, was formed on the basis of NGO Center for Historical Memory. It was established in Lviv, focusing on preserving cultural heritage, assistance to museums, cultural institutions, archives, and other institutions. The initiative also invited international colleagues to help. An important aspect of the logistical operations, which included their receipt, storage, and distribution of humanitarian aid to cultural institutions, is handled by an office set up at the Lviv Polytechnic National University. And this partnership with the university underlines their joint effort to protect Ukraine's historical and cultural monuments in times of war. Next, please. This example is more about artistic practices and possibilities. French Institute in Prague launched a project sharing Ukrainian stories in Prague, and they offer a platform to various forms of storytelling about the situation in Ukraine and the lives of those who had to flee their country. And the initiative includes a film festival, publication of a documentary novel, I'll Call You When I'm Home, and various workshops. Ukrainian Film Week with screenings of Ukrainian movies was also held, and it also included program of discussions about the social and cultural situation in Ukraine. Next, please. And this project documenting Ukraine, the Institute for Human Sciences in Vienna supports scholars, journalists, artists, archivists, etc., based in Ukraine as they work on documentation projects that preserve what's happening in Ukraine through reporting, gathering published source materials, collecting oral evidence and intellectual reflection, and also artistic interpretation. And these materials are saved in a complex transdisciplinary archive. More than 230 projects resulting from this initiative are available to explore on their website, but some of the authors did not want to be made public, and also projects are still being created from new, so the number of existing projects cannot be said. And the large groups into which projects are grouped are culture, diary and memoir, displacement, environment, heritage, military, and oral history. And then this September, they launched in Lviv an Institute for Documentation and Exchange, which is a cultural and research institution that is documenting Russia's war against Ukraine and stimulates intellectual exchange between Ukraine and the wider world. And all the initiatives are very nice and interesting, if I may so that such kind of initiatives can be nice and interesting, but this one I like it very much because there were so many examples of different people, so I recommend to visit this website also. Yeah, so there are many different types of initiatives, those that involve a single event, fundraising for a specific site or institutions, and longer-term projects that are becoming more broad-based and involving more and more higher education institutions and other people. And that is all from me, and if Rita wants to add something.
Yes, thank you very much, Elīna. Yes, what I would like to add is, so Elīna presented with just few of the initiatives, and for those who are not aware, this research was done by the entire team of our project, Data for Ukraine. So we need to thank Lviv Polytech and Ljubljana University and also Space for CC for gathering these things up. And also all partners are represented in the forthcoming publication, where we will have a close-up to several of these initiatives. But we added this part to the lecture because we believe this is the democratic responses to non-democratic actions as war going on. And I think they illustrate very nicely the power of humankind in the best light. And I'm also glad that within this project we could observe them more closely and get to know them. Now, this side, I think me and Elīna, we will say now, thank you very much for being such a nice audience. And before we switch to possible discussion part, we will stop recording now.